He once struggled against opponents who seemed untouchable, men with longer reach, faster feet, and higher punch volume. Instead of fading, he chose to transform. He shut himself away in mountain camps, tortured his body through relentless circuits, sparred giants heavier than himself, and even forced his neck to endure punishing loads. Today, his strength lies in ruthless counterpunching, devastating body shots, and footwork that controls space. But these knockout weapons were born in training, not the ring. Before we get started, remember to subscribe so you don't miss the most exciting stories about boxing's legendary fighters. He was born on July 18, 1990 in Guadalajara, Mexico, the youngest in a family of fighters. Surrounded by older brothers who boxed professionally, he grew up with fists echoing louder than lullabies. His family ran a modest popsicle business, but for him, the real flavor of life was found in the gym. At only 13, he laced gloves for the first time, and by 15, he stepped into the professional ranks. Not because he was ready, but because Mexico had no one his age willing to face him. In that crucible, he found two men who would shape his destiny, Jose Chepo Reynoso and his son Eddie. They did not see a red-haired boy with freckles. They saw a diamond that could be sharpened through discipline and pain. Under their watch, the foundations of counterpunching, footwork, and relentless bodywork began to form, long before the world knew the name Canelo. Far from the comfort of city lights, he disappears into the thin air of Truckee and Lake Tahoe. For 6 to 8 weeks, he lives at nearly 6,000 feet, rising with the cold mountain dawn and ending each day in silence, cut off from his family and the world below. The altitude punishes every breath, forcing his body to adapt, building red blood cells that carry more oxygen when he returns to normal ground. 2 sessions a day grind away hesitation, sharpening endurance until 12 rounds feel like survival drills. In this isolated camp, there are no distractions, no excuses, only the weight of the mountain pressing down. Out of that pressure came a fighter who could march forward relentlessly, knowing his lungs would outlast and his will would break the man across from him. In the gym, he subjects his neck to a torture few would dare attempt. Balanced on unstable surfaces, he rolls and strains against crushing resistance, forcing the muscles of his neck to hold under pressure that threatens to bend the spine. It is dangerous, controversial, and never meant for imitation, but for him it became a weapon. Every rep carved armor, where most fighters are most fragile. The goal was simple: withstand the thunder of punches that break lesser men. This brutal training explains why, across a long career filled with champions and heavy hitters, he has never touched the canvas. The pain of those drills created an iron column that allowed him to keep marching forward, unshaken, no matter how cleanly a glove landed. Every monster punch he throws starts long before his fists leave his guard. It begins in the legs. His training camps are filled with grueling circuits that punish balance and demand explosiveness. He climbs onto benches with bands pulling against his stride, drives knees high against resistance, and forces each leg to work alone until it burns. The rotations of his core link with pressing movements that mimic the twist of a hook. Each drill is designed to forge a chain, from the floor through the hips into the shoulders, delivering force that does not fade as rounds drag on. The results of this philosophy became undeniable against Callum Smith, a towering champion with size and reach that should have been overwhelming. Instead, Canelo cut angles with precision, walking through long arms without losing his footing. Every step was powered by the same legs tortured in those circuits, placing him close enough to rip to the body and then retreat just out of danger. For 12 rounds, Smith looked trapped, unable to keep distance. The wide decision that night was not simply the product of skillful counters, but of legs that had been drilled beyond the threshold of exhaustion, legs that carried monster power into every exchange. Inside the gym, repetition shapes instinct. He bends at the waist, slips his head, and snaps back with counters all in one flowing rhythm. The drills demand that his hips, shoulders, and feet move as a single unit, so defense instantly transforms into attack. When the head sways, the torso coils, and the fists are already on their way. This rhythm reached its peak against Billy Joe Saunders. Round after round, body feints forced Saunders to lower his guard. Then in one seamless motion, Canelo shifted his weight, rolled his torso, and launched a right uppercut that crashed through the opening. The punch fractured Saunders' orbital bone and ended the fight. What looked like sudden violence was in fact the product of endless hours of synchronized drills, defense reborn as devastating offense. To prepare for giants, he chooses to fight them before the real battle begins. In sparring, he shares the ring with heavyweights whose reach and power eclipse anything he will face at super middleweight. Each round is survival, each exchange a test of composure under crushing shots. The goal is not to win these gym wars, but to endure, to make danger feel familiar. When fight night comes, opponents his own size no longer seem imposing. After trading with men far bigger, he enters the ring with calm eyes, knowing he has already stood inside the storm. Few fighters dedicate themselves to body attacks the way he does. Hour after hour, he pounds the heavy bag and aqua bag, perfecting shots that crash into the ribs and sink into the liver. The purpose is cruel but effective. Force an opponent to bend, to lower their guard, and to feel pain with every breath. Once the hands drop, the head becomes an open target. This patient assault broke through against Sergey Kovalev. For 10 rounds, the bigger man kept his shape, but body pressure wore away his foundation. Then came the finish, a left hook followed by a straight right that ended the fight in round 11. That knockout was born from weeks of drilling body shots until they became a key that unlocked victory at the highest level. Even monsters must adapt. After surgery on his knee, he cut back the endless road work that once defined his mornings, later reintroducing runs with care to preserve strength without risking collapse. He adjusted his diet with equal discipline, controlling every source of fuel. These changes prove that survival at the top requires not only power, but intelligent evolution. Before the mountain camps and the punishing circuits, there were simple truths drilled into him day after day. The first was that the feet decide the fight. From the beginning, his coaches hammered the idea that movement is not wasted energy, but the key to survival. Each shuffle had to place him exactly where he wanted to be, a half step beyond danger, yet close enough to strike. Over time, that economy of movement became a weapon as sharp as any punch. The second truth was that defense must breathe with offense. He learned to let his head slip just enough, his waist bend just right, and then let the counter fly in the same beat. This was not about avoiding contact alone, but about turning defense into the spark of punishment. Hours of shadow boxing with exaggerated rhythm burned this coordination into muscle memory until it became instinct. The gym also became his classroom for reading opponents. He insisted on sparring without shortcuts, inviting partners to throw freely so he could study the language of their shoulders, the twitch before a hook, the rhythm before a combination. These lessons hardened him more than any drill, because they taught him that fights are won by recognizing patterns faster than the man across the ring. He also immersed himself in the past, studying film of legends known for clever feet and controlled distance. From their ghosts, he borrowed angles. From their mistakes, he learned what to avoid. By the time he grew into his own body, he was already a collector of knowledge, piecing together the foundations that would later support the monstrous routines of his prime. The power fans see today stands on the bedrock laid in those early years of disciplined fundamentals. Behind the walls of his private gym, where the windows are covered and the doors shut tight, discipline rules every hour. This is the culture known as no boxing, no life. It is not a slogan, but a code that demands loyalty and absolute focus. Within those walls, distractions vanish, and every fighter in the stable knows that showing up late or cutting corners is unthinkable. For him, discipline stretches far beyond punches and conditioning. He turns to golf, a game that teaches patience and rhythm. Each swing requires timing, calm breathing, and the willingness to wait for the right moment rather than rush. That same patience appears in the ring, where he refuses to chase knockouts. Instead, he stalks, watching, forcing mistakes, and striking when the opening is undeniable. Recovery is treated with the same seriousness as training. Cold plunges shock his body after brutal sessions, easing inflammation and clearing fatigue. Cryotherapy chambers wrap him in sub-zero air, quickening healing and allowing him to return stronger the next day. Sleep becomes sacred, meals are carefully measured, and nothing is left to chance. This unseen discipline explains why he can push through 12 rounds with energy still in reserve, why he remains calm when pressure rises, and why his style has endured the demands of more than 60 professional fights. Fans see only the knockouts, the belts, and the roar of the crowd. What they cannot see is the quiet ritual of patience and recovery, the mental steel that was forged long before the opening bell. In his career, he has captured world titles in 4 different weight classes and became the first undisputed super middleweight champion in history, unifying all 4 major belts. He remains the only Mexican fighter to achieve this milestone, leaving a lasting mark on modern boxing. 63 victories, including 39 by knockout, stand as proof of the power of discipline and relentless training. Only 3 men have ever defeated him, and each belongs to the highest level of champions. Floyd Mayweather Jr., the undefeated master of defense, outpointed him when he was still a young contender. Dmitry Bivol, a natural light heavyweight with both size and skill, kept him at distance with precision. And Terence Crawford, a generational talent, moved up and ended his reign at super middleweight. These setbacks show that only the very best could overcome him. From a fiery young puncher, he transformed into a calculating force who breaks opponents down with patience and body attacks. Today, younger fighters study his brutal leg routines, his body punching combinations, and his way of turning defense into sudden offense. To them, he is not just a champion, but an example of how to extend a career at the elite level through intelligence and discipline. Greatness never comes without shadows. In 2018, a positive test led to suspension and questions about his diet. He returned with stricter control over every bite, determined that no controversy would define him. As years passed and he climbed through weight classes, critics pointed to a slower punch output, saying his prime had faded. Yet his response was not denial, but adaptation. He tightened his positioning, focused on body attacks, and won rounds by efficiency rather than volume. Even his own training methods sparked debate, especially the brutal neck exercises that some experts warned could risk long-term injury. To him, these routines were not excess, but survival. The criticisms remain part of his story, but so too does the fact that he kept winning, proving that pressure never erased his discipline. His power was not born under the bright lights, but in the grind of isolation, in the cold breath of mountain air, in the pain of circuits that broke his legs down only to rebuild them stronger. It was shaped by patience at golf courses, by ice baths that stole his breath, and by a discipline that never loosened its grip. When he steps into the ring, every counter, every body shot, every final punch carries the weight of those unseen hours. Which weapon defines him more, the crushing body attack or the sudden uppercut? That answer belongs to you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out more similar videos on the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you.